Evening, everybody. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to our November 6th workshop. Today we have today, boy, I'm going to have to give you all tardy lessons here for talking. Today we have many teachers and principals here this evening to discuss their workshop with us. So who's the leader? Susie?
Well, I'm going to kick off.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
Okay, go
I'm
for
going
it.
to kick off. First of all, congratulations to those who were elected yesterday, and of course, we're sad to see others leaving. So what I'm going to talk about first is something probably the new school committee is going to want to probably dive deeper into. So this is, if this feels like we're not going to have a long conversation, we have 1 hour. And elementary has a presentation, secondary has a presentation, so we're going to try to, so it seems like we're moving fast. It doesn't mean we can't revisit things that come up, so I want people to know that this is the beginning and we can keep having conversations. So I put a document together with the question, is Auburn doing MCL and PBL? So it appeared that I was being asked for a yes or no answer, and it isn't a yes or no answer. So I'm going to, there's a document that's going around, share it, keep it, to kind of give an overview of what the work is we're doing in Auburn. And then you'll hear a lot of what I say in this document will be said in the presentations. So the first side where it says MCL and PBL are educational approaches made up of a collection of practices. So MCL would be mass customized learning, and PBL would be proficiency-based learning. So if you look at a definition for Maine customized learning, it's uncompromisingly learner-centered education delivered in a structure that makes it possible to meet the individual and personal needs of all learners. And these are, there are 6 bullets around when you read about customized learning, mass customized, these are the things you're going to hear. So to say, is Auburn doing all of it? You're going to see we do parts of it, okay? So that's why it's not easy to say yes or no, okay? So there's viable learning outcomes, quality instruction, all teachers, motivating learner opportunities, varied evidence of learning, customized structure, and transformational technologies. So I'm not going to read everything. You have the document there. For proficiency-based learning, system of instruction, assessment, grading, and academic reporting that are based on students demonstrating that they have learned the knowledge and skills they are expected to learn as they progress through their education. And these are the tenets of proficiency-based learning: standards-based learning expectations, proficiency defined in courses, goals that students are acquiring skills. When students don't meet, they receive additional instruction. There's multiple measures for proficiency. Proficiency-based grading that reports on the progression of proficiency, and then reporting. So those are kind of just giving broad definitions of what those concepts of collection of practices mean. So on the other side is, what is Auburn doing? So the reason I gave out a second is that we're really driven by Vision 2030, which the school committee adopted last year. So that might be something the new school committee wants to reflect upon. And then on the other side is Marzano, the teaching framework that was selected by the PEBG committee, which is made up of teachers and administrators. And so it tells you what that expectation is. So a lot of what we do on a yearly basis as things change and shift is we align arrows to expectations. So we have to take what is asked of us and we try to align it so that we don't feel like we're doing all these things in separate silos, but we're doing them in a thoughtful, consistent way across the district. So that's why these 2 documents are important, because this is a lot of what's driving our work. So in Auburn, it comes right off Vision 2030, serves the whole child, focuses on student interests, goals, and career exploration, is student-centered within a standards-based approach, provides independent, collaborative, and community-based learning, is flexible and personalized to maximize every student's growth. Simply put, the school experience is student-centered and personalized. The curriculum is standards-based and transparently articulated to ensure each student is proficient in the skills and knowledge necessary for success in life after high school. As we work toward Vision 2030, we identify and use educational practices that support our vision. Some of these practices are also found in mass customized learning and or proficiency-based learning. However, we're not implementing either the MCL or PBL complete collection of practices. So you can read, what are we doing in relation to student-centered and personalized experience? You see student voices, you see differentiated instruction, you see technology to tools to support, you see recognizing that students learn in different ways in different time frames, the importance of goal setting, and providing multiple pathways. You also see that a lot if you look on the back of Vision 2030, a lot of what's expected in our teacher expectations in our framework. Teachers in that Marzano framework need to students need to be able to articulate what goals they're working on, how they'll know they've met the goals. That's intertwined in the work that we assess teachers on. The other part is the standards-based approach. We do have learning targets that are defined by the Maine learning results. We do identify those targets and where students need on the pre-proficiency levels. We're using Empower Platform at the elementary, and we're using Power School at Auburn Middle School and Edward Little High School. There is no discussion, no talk of moving any of the work that's being done at the elementary to the secondary level. So I just want to be clear on that. Aligning assessments to targets provides data about what students have learned, and we've identified in every course at the high school what are those key targets that students need to demonstrate they understand. So that's kind of a nutshell of what our work is. So it's not as simple as, are you doing MCL or PBL? There's lots of components of each that we're doing, and there's things that we're not doing. What we're really committed to is Vision 2030 and the teacher framework, Marzano's teaching framework. So that gives you a frame also of what the elementary will be talking about and the secondary will be talking about in their work on their school improvement plans this year. So I'm turning it over to them. And we also, you know, as I said, with the new school committee, we may want to look at these documents more in depth and have a conversation, deeper conversation. Sue?
Thank you. We appreciate the opportunity to be here tonight and share with you our elementary school improvement plans. And we're going to start off with some introductions.
Mike Davis, principal at Walton School.
Celeste Bodette, principal at Fairview.
Sue Doris, principal at East Auburn.
Cheryl Klein, principal at Sherwood Heights.
Lila Mitchell, principal at Park Avenue School.
Andrew Bard, principal of Washburn.
Tonight we have 3 major focus areas that we're going to talk to you about. These areas that we're focusing on are happening in all of the schools. And these areas are safe and supportive schools, teacher efficacy, and curriculum and instruction. And all of these areas ultimately lead to student achievement, you know, which is our goal, to increase student achievement. So we're going to start off with our work around safe and supportive schools. And I'm going to turn this over right now to Mr. Davis and Mrs. Bodette.
Thank you very much. And so we're going to start by highlighting the work that we're focusing on in our schools this year are centered around family engagement and making that shift from what we know and have done really well with is moving the shift from involvement to engagement. And so certainly the research says that, you know, an increase in family engagement does yield higher achievement for our students. So knowing that, that's the lens that we're looking through is a lot of the work we're doing this year and a lot of our goals that our schools are focused on. And so one of the things we've done to work with this is to really unpack what does involvement and engagement look like and we've done this with our staff. I know I've done it with my PTO, and maybe some others have done that also with their PTOs. Because I think when we think about the work we're doing in our schools, we do really a wonderful job around doing lots of great events. Parents come in, the turnout's wonderful. We have our turkey bingo, and we have our harvest dance, and we have our fairs and our whatevers. We get a lot of turnout, which is really, really great. And that certainly is great involvement. So we're now working really hard this year to make it even more meaningful and making a shift to engagement, kicking it up to another level. And some of the things we've done in our district already, I know at Washburn, They have modified their Open Door Wednesdays that they've done once a month, I believe it's once a month, to include parent sessions that are how can I support my child in math and literacy, or maybe it's other things that they need as well. We've done that also at Walton and after our school-wide morning and meeting events. Schools also, I think we all do regular assemblies where our parents are invited in, where we take that opportunity to celebrate the learning of our students. And that's really what it's about. The more we can celebrate their child, that's also going to help with our work and efforts around engagement. Okay. And you're gonna-
So part of our work is also with family engagement is around building relationships. So really connecting with parents and families and making that effort. I know that we've all put that as goals. So especially at the beginning of the year, but not just at the beginning of the year, we've outlined how are we going to keep that momentum going. How do we make the connection with every parent? There are some parents we see a lot and some people aren't comfortable. So our work is focused on reaching out and making sure that all parents are feeling comfortable. So I know one of the things that my teachers did, that's a goal on their PDCAs, and we've outlined a way to do that. So we working, really focusing on our communication, keeping those open lines of communication. We do various things. We have the Remind app, we have the Peek at the Week, phone calls, emails, but it's really trying to discover what's the best fit for our families is. So if you don't use Remind, or if you don't feel comfortable coming in, what can we do to make sure that you do have an understanding of what's happening in our school community, what's happening with your child's achievement. We have had parent information evenings. We had, I know that last night we had one of our classrooms had an open house. So these are ongoing, not just the beginning of the year, come see our school. It was about learning. So the students were taking their parents around and showing them their targets, their goals, their progress, really explaining what happens in the course of the day. So trying to get parents in or families in and more involved in instruction, achievement, not just, like Mike said, attending the events. Those are all well and good, and we love having families there, but we want parents to feel like they can come in and ask questions, learn more about instruction. I know at Washburn School they do Open Door Wednesdays where from 8 to 9 families can come in and they do some of that work. In addition, so again, with that family engagement, the big piece is about building relationships.
Right, and one thing I'll just comment on some of the communications that we've done this year, which is really nice. We, at our school, and like many others, we really made an intentional effort when we're communicating with parents weekly, and my teachers are doing that weekly. Not only do they just inform what things are coming up in the nuts and bolts, but they really are taking the opportunity to highlight the learning, as you mentioned, the learning targets, so they're getting familiar with the target language, but then also providing resources. Here's where you can look to support your child on math, or here's a strategy you can try at home to support your child as well. So I just wanted to piggyback on that. The relationship building certainly is something that's key, and I think the stronger our family engagement, all of these bullets really tie nicely together. The stronger the family engagement, chances are the increase in student attendance. And certainly that's something we're all working on, and we know it can be a struggle for some for various reasons or barriers, and we're really working really hard to make sure that our students are there each and every day. And in the past, we've worked with the Count Me In initiative, who helped us develop protocols where that helped us in guiding our teachers and our staff with the language to help them talk to the parents about that. And Celeste is going to talk a little bit about that.
So one of the things that teachers do is if a student's missed between 3 and 5 days and we don't know why, if we haven't been in touch with the family, we do reach out. The teachers reach out just to check in. Is everything okay? You know, what can we do to help? Is there something else going on? Just to make sure Johnny's not upset because Susie's been mean to him for the last week and we just didn't know about it. So really just making that connection with parents, and then trying to work through that. Above and beyond, if we do have a student who's truant, or has an issue with truancy, then we do set up meetings, support team meetings. I just had a meeting last week. It was a great meeting. We work with the parents to develop a plan. We meet with the students and to determine how we're going to execute the plan, because ultimately our goal is to have all our students with us every day. So we are working hard, and as a result, currently, all elementary schools, this is a celebration, all elementary schools are meeting our attendance rate, which is above 95%. One of the things we do with students is celebrate our attendance rate. So it might be on announcements, it might be Twitter, it might be written on a window when you walk into a school. So celebrating the hard work that the kids are doing to get to school as well, and celebrating our families and for getting their kids to school.
And I think that celebration piece is huge. And I know a lot of our families at Walton do look for the posts and look for the tweets. And the students look for their name on the 95% wall. We have bulletin boards, and I'm a little envious of the window thing that they do at Washburn and other schools are doing. So we're all kind of stealing some ideas off each other, which is great. But ultimately what it's doing for us is providing momentum and excitement and a little bit of a challenge to make sure that you're here in school every day. So keep looking for the tweets.
And then our last point that we're going to talk about under Safe Schools is the PBIS work that we're doing. PBIS provides a consistent framework for all students to improve our school safety and promote positive behavior. We've all worked on coming up with and creating and implementing common school-wide expectations, especially in our common areas: cafeteria, hallway, playground, bus, bathroom. But I'm not going to talk anymore about that because there is a presentation on that at the beginning of the meeting. So I am going to pass this on to Andrew and Lila.
Okay, we are going to talk about teacher efficacy, which is something that is embedded in everything that we do every single day. Research indicates that the number one factor influencing student achievement is collective teacher efficacy. Several teachers and administrators from Auburn schools attended a conference in Freeport this summer on collective efficacy with Jenny Donahue, who's from Ontario, great expert in collective efficacy. She says that when teachers believe that together they and their colleagues can impact student achievement, they share a sense of collective teacher efficacy. Educators with high efficacy show greater effort and persistence, a willingness to try new teaching approaches, set more challenging goals, and attend more closely to the needs of students who require extra assistance. According to research data, effective teachers do set goals, they provide feedback, they help students interact with new knowledge, they engage with students, allowing them to talk about themselves and noticing when they aren't engaged. They establish and maintain classroom rules, they maintain relationships with students, and they communicate high expectations. So that brings us to, why do we use the Marzano framework? The Marzano provides the framework for teacher efficacy, as well as practices and strategies that yield a high effect size, such as clear learning targets, students monitoring their learning through learning scales, formative assessments, and effective feedback. Self-reflection and collaborative learning. Those are all practices that yield high effect size. So why do we follow the PEPG format? Well, the primary purpose of teacher evaluation is simply to promote teacher improvement. So the PEPG model encourages shared language about the craft of teaching and supports collaboration, ultimately fostering improvement in teaching practices and positively impacting student learning. Teacher evaluation is a process, not an event. Effective teachers continually reflect on and seek opportunities to improve their practice. PDCAs are a way, it's a document for teachers to set their goals, record what they do, check, and adjust. That's all their reflective practices, and it's all documented in their PDCAs. It's their learning. Routine self-assessment, feedback from supervisors and peers, and focused professional development are all essential in supporting a teacher in becoming and remaining a skillful educator.
So how do we do that? How do we build skillful educators and student achievement? Well, we use instructional coaches. And in most schools, we do have instructional coaches who are trained in the best practices in literacy and math and best practices in teaching, period. They help us track our data. They work with students. They work with staff in all learning environments. They are part of our leadership teams in our building that helps make informed decisions, as well as help us cultivate our school climate and culture. They're non-evaluative. They do a lot of work, and their work is embedded through Diane Sweeney. They provide PD on early release Wednesdays. They are constantly reflecting, they're learning, and sharing all of their new knowledge with all of us. Another way that we're building teacher efficacy is to look at the Lucy Calkins writing program. We do have some trained Lucy Calkins trainers within our district that are helping at schools who have attended some of their training in New York and helping to grow our expertise in the writing units of Study with Fidelity. So overall, teacher efficacy really empowers teachers and students to believe that all students can learn and to give them that mindset that they are all our kids. And I'm going to hand it over to Sue and Cheryl.
So the third component of our school improvement plans is curriculum and instruction. So you're going to hear me say some similar things that Katie introduced at the beginning. The first area that I'd like to talk about is standards-based instruction. So when educators use systems of instruction, assessment, grading, and academic reporting based on students demonstrating understanding or mastery of knowledge and skills they're expected to learn, they are engaging in standards-based instruction. Effective standards-based instruction starts with teacher clarity. Teachers and students have clarity if they can answer 3 questions. What am I learning? Why am I learning it? And when will I know that I have learned it? So we know through the work of researchers like John Hattie and Robert Marzano that teacher clarity has a significant positive impact on student achievement. So to ensure that equity and clarity, we start with the Maine learning results. These academic standards provide a set of clear expectations as to what students should know, understand, and be able to explain as they progress through each grade level. Auburn teachers have collaborated to establish grade and content-specific learning targets, criteria for success, and learning progressions that are transparent to students and families. Students are given the opportunity to engage in formative assessment and self-assessment in regard to their progress toward meeting those learning targets. That data informs the feedback and the instructional adjustments that allow students to focus on achieving the next step toward mastery. So recently I had an opportunity to observe that practice in a 5th grade classroom. Students were working in math journals that had a learning target and scale with the descriptions for each stage of the learning progression for the concept of volume. At the beginning of the unit, the students had highlighted on the scale what they knew and understood about volume. So on that particular day that I was observing, they were engaging in a self-assessment regarding their mastery toward that goal and recording the evidence for their rating. So I chatted with several of the students, and I have to say I was really impressed with their honesty, but also with their ability to actually identify what level they were on and to be able to name the evidence that indicated they were at that level. For those not yet fully proficient, they knew exactly what they needed to do to get to that next level. Use of learning targets and progressions also helps us to report out learning to families in a way that is transparent and very specific. Just last evening, Sherwood Heights kindergarten teachers were meeting with parents to have conversations about student progress and next steps. They used goal binders to help the families understand the critical learning targets for kindergarten for the full year and to show specifically the current skill level attainment for each student. Another component of the curriculum instruction that I want to address is the Everyday Math program. So Everyday Math was developed and written by a group of education researchers at the University of Chicago School of Mathematics project. That project officially began in 1983 with a review of the extensive existing research about children's mathematical thinking, curriculum, and instruction. The researchers then built upon that existing knowledge by conducting their own research and then progressed to establishing the guiding principles that inform the development of the Everyday Mathematics program. Their goal in developing the program was to help elementary students acquire a deeper conceptual understanding of the mathematical concepts and greater mathematical fluency. So I think one of the big things is that many programs focus on one or the other, but with Everyday Mathematics, both of those skills are equally important in order to help them become lifelong mathematical thinkers, problem solvers, and collaborators. One hallmark of the Everyday Mathematics program is that it is a spiral curriculum. Spiraling refers to distributed or spaced practice rather than massed practice. Spacing out the learning and revisiting concepts is correlated with higher levels of performance than massing or concentrating instruction on one topic and then moving on to another topic and leaving the old topic behind. Everyday Mathematics incorporates social learning, use of manipulatives, and small group work to support high levels of learning and to meet individual student needs.
And I have a few other areas that I'm going to share under curriculum and instruction. We're doing a lot of things to improve student achievement. I've been hearing from each group here, and I'm just going to add a few more things to that. We use the workshop model here in Auburn at the elementary level in all of our schools. And what this model is about, if you were going to walk into a classroom and see the practices, you'd see a whole class mini lesson going on, followed by some small group instruction and independent work, and then some kind of sharing and debrief at the end. And this framework really allows teachers to differentiate instruction for students and to address each child's individual learning. The strategies and skills in a workshop model are taught explicitly, and they're taught whole group, but they can also be taught one-to-one and in small groups. And we have lots of opportunities, again, to personalize instruction for our students with this model. This model also taps into the power of a learning community where we have all students learning together, and they can help each other out and they can be role models for each other. And the workshop model also lends itself well to voice and choice. And assessments are built into this model to inform instruction for teachers and for students to really see where they are along learning progression. And along with this workshop model in really all the areas that we teach, we are using the Lucy Calkins writing and reading programs right now. And this is a workshop-based curriculum. And this program is based on over 30 years of research that tells us how students learn best in terms of reading and writing. And the curriculum in the reading and the writing units of study is based on learning progressions, which tell us how students develop over time as readers and writers. And these are great because the students know right where they are and where they need to go next along the progression. The lessons and the workshops are student-centered with the goal of teaching students to become independent readers and writers. So the instruction here is based on the gradual release of responsibility model, which we actually heard about today in our technology professional development, which is the teacher teaches, I do, and then the class is practicing, we do, and then you do. The student develops the independence. So along with the workshop model and the Lucy Calkins reading and writing programs, we also use a framework called response to intervention. And this is a tiered system of instruction designed to prevent failure. That includes universal screening. So, when I've come and I've shared with you the STAR results, that's from our universal screening. So that helps us identify students that are struggling and that we need to help. It also involves the delivery of interventions and progress monitoring, so we can keep track of how our students are doing. So there's a little picture up there of the 3 tiers. The tier 1 is the core classroom instruction, and tier 2 is targeted small group instruction, and tier 3 is more intensive individual or 1-to-2 instruction. And I wanted to share a little bit of information with you tonight about what this looks like in our Title I schools, and some questions came up around our reading interventions. So I'm going to share with you a little snapshot of what's going on in our Title I schools. First of all, the Title I schools are all of the schools except for Fairview right now, so 5 of us, and we're all running school-wide programs, which means that all students in the school are eligible to receive Title I services. And in all of our schools, we have to remember that the RTI, the Response to Intervention Framework, is not just isolated to Title I. All of the different interventionists in the building are part of the response to intervention system. So special educators, English language learner teachers and support staff, along with our Title I interventionists, our coaches, our reading recovery teachers. We're all together in this, so we all are part of the model. This table is showing you by school, based on the fall screening right now, how many students are in the lowest tier proficiency, does not meet. So we have 4 levels of proficiency: does not meet, partially meets, meets and exceeds. So this is showing you right now in the first column the number of students at each school that are in that does not meet category. That's where they scored on the fall screening. And then the next column is showing you how many students in that category are receiving a Tier 2 or a Tier 3 intervention. So please keep in mind that classroom teachers are all working with all of these students, and they're all delivering instruction to all students. But this table is showing you how many students are getting supplemental additional instruction. So that's what you're seeing in that middle column there. And the last column is showing you how many of those students in the does not meet category are not receiving an intervention. And in our schools, we want those kids to be receiving interventions too. We just don't have the resources to provide those interventions. Then another question was asked about how many students are currently served in our schools by coaches, interventionists, or reading recovery teachers. And right now that number is currently 217 students. So we service a high number of students with our Title I staff in our schools. But you can see from this table that we still have needs.
Pat, did you have a question?
My question was, can you reiterate, I mean, why? Why would we leave 192 kids without services?
We have those, okay, I just want to make sure that, yeah, we do not have the staffing to provide those students with an additional intervention beyond the classroom teacher. So they are getting instruction in the classroom, and
Has shared that at budget times about, and we have put in interventions over time. Looking at this data, we added interventionists at Sherwood Heights, Park Avenue. You know, we look at where, I'm trying to remember where they were, so correct me if I'm wrong.
Yep.
So, not to say they don't get intervention in their classroom with their classroom teachers. So the classroom teacher also is responsible to provide interventions in the classroom with that differentiated model, with the workshop model, to make sure that those students are getting double dipped. So they might meet with the teacher every single day, where other students may be meeting with the teacher every other day. So the teacher does a lot of the differentiation in the classroom. So they're not paying attention to those students. They're just not ones that are getting tier 2 and tier 3 outside of their regular classroom.
so we want to open it up right now to questions if you have any, just given the
Couple
time
minutes
frame.
before
Yeah.
secondary, yeah.
So if you have any questions for us, we're happy to answer them.
Grab your mic, Karen.
So I just have a couple of questions. Knowing that school improvement plans are built on comprehensive needs assessments, were comprehensive needs assessments done? Who was part of that? Because you can't get to a school improvement plan without first doing your needs assessments. So was that done? Who was that done by? And do we have that information as well?
Yes. Well, for the Title I, I can speak for the Title I schools because we did have to do a comprehensive needs assessment.
Right.
And we did have to write a school-wide improvement plan, and we actually have to update that every year. So that's a combination of different staff members at each school are part of that process. That would include the literacy staff, that would include some teachers, and the building administrators, and potentially parents, a parent. Yep.
Okay.
So they interface with those plans to make, when they say school improvement plan, that's their plan, do, check, and adjust that they have put together.
Yeah.
That interfaces with the Title I plans.
Yeah. Also, I didn't share the last slide, and I want to make sure that I mention that to you because
So this is my next question.
Yeah.
So what are the actual goals and how
Yes.
will you know when you've
there
met
we
the
go.
goals?
I think did you print those?
Yes, I did. I have, yeah, we can
You'll
pass
have
that
those,
around.
yeah.
So, each school has some SMART goals that go along with their improvement plans, and we are going to pass that around to you right now. We all have goals in reading and math right now for proficiency and adequate yearly growth, and we all have attendance goals as well, and then some schools have a SMART goal for behavior. So you can look at those. They're all similar goals, but just different numbers in there based on the needs at our schools.
I have a quick question. Spiraling, the feature of spiraling in as a strategy. I'm still not convinced. You know, I'm from the old Madeline Hunter mastery days, and when the kids mastered things, they mastered things. We didn't have to keep, we've revisited to dipstick to see if they still knew that. So tell me, you know, what your thoughts are on the spiraling format.
Are you talking about everyday mathematics?
In the everyday mathematics, yep. And I'm familiar with the everyday mathematics from years back.
So one of the things that happens when a topic is taught to mastery is that it tends to be sort of finished and they go on to the next topic. And so it's not as evident if children kind of lose that. Whereas if you're spiraling and you come around to that topic again and they don't have the skills, it can be more difficult, but that struggle is what we would call productive struggle. And so the research actually shows that over time, students develop a higher level of mastery when they are working within a spiraling system.
It's kind of like reminiscent of, again, the Madeline Hodge. We did everything in threes then, you know, you would teach, the teacher was involved. Okay, I'm going to show you how to do X, Y, and Z. Now you're going to do it, and now you're going to do it on your own. So that's really very similar to what that was, and that really works. I'm glad to hear that. That's what part of it is. It's a good instructional strategy, and it does help with retention, and then that also helps you with the differentiation, because then you know who you need to help while they're working on it. You dipstick around there, so that's good to hear. You know, it sounds like there's a lot of work that you put into this. You know, I really appreciate that. And the last thing I was going to ask in terms of, you know, your manpower. If you had, you know, the crystal ball and made your wish, what would make a difference there? Because I know that teachers are really working as hard as possible, and you don't have enough manpower. So what does that look like? What would be your recommendation?
Well, we definitely need more interventionists. You know, I think you can see that when we look at that table, back one slide. You know, that would be very helpful. We really want to meet the needs of those kids, especially those kids that are in that does not meet category. And we really want to be able to look at our, you know, primary grades, K2 especially, and have smaller class sizes there. I think we're doing a pretty good job with our class sizes, but we want to make sure that we have small class sizes there and that we can really support those kids with their reading before they hit third grade, because we really want all kids
That's
reading.
the magic year.
Yeah,
If you don't have
that's
it by
it.
then, it's
Yeah.
going to be difficult. I thought you'd probably say that, and I agree. I mean, I agree with that, because the idea is to help alleviate, you know, the overload on the teachers, so that they can do their differentiation, and we can help those kids individually. Thank you.
So while I understand this in my head, I think it's really important to help people understand that there's a difference when you're looking at your goals and your benchmarks. Can you speak a little bit to what you mean when you say 70% of students will meet benchmark and 70% will meet adequate yearly growth? There's a difference between the two, and I think, and you're all nodding your head, so you know there's a difference between the two. So when we talk about a sea of red, when I too look at STAR, I really want to be transparent. What does that mean? Meeting grade level versus adequate yearly progress and adequate yearly growth.
So the proficiency goals that you have in front of you, those are shortened up a little bit for the document, but those are all based on the STAR results right now. So we're looking at the STAR benchmarks, and when we're saying we want 70% of our students to be proficient, we're talking about on the STAR by the spring. When we're looking at the adequate yearly growth, there's a measure that we look at within STAR, which is the student growth percentile. And that's what we're using to determine whether or not a student made adequate yearly growth. So a student could make adequate yearly growth but not be proficient.
Right, and I think that's the distinction. If I am a second grade teacher and I have a child who's reading below first grade, and I have actually helped this child grow 1.3 years, they are not on grade level, but we have worked really hard to get them there. And so I think that's really important for people here and then people at home to also understand there's a distinct difference between the two. We can only do so much within 1 year, but I think it needs to be really stated well.
And the nice part about that, I agree, Karen, is that it's, we can celebrate that with kids as well, right? So they've worked really hard,
Yes.
and it's frustrating if it's always just, no,
Yes.
I'm not proficient, but look at the growth you made, and that's what we can celebrate. So yes, I agree.
And that's why I wanted it just to really, let's state this, what this means,
Yeah.
the difference between the two.
Karen made the comment about teachers like working hard, yeah, so yes. No, right, and I think Karen made that point, that the teachers can celebrate, look at all the work I did, but I wanted to also include the kids as well, yeah.
Oh, yes, of course.
Any other questions? Okay.
Okay, so thank you, elementary.
Thank you.
Secondary.
So much. Thank you so much, everybody. Jeez, I hope we left enough time for you guys.
Go over a little bit before to start our meeting. I hope everybody understands that.
Well, yeah, it's a lot of information.
Yeah.
and
Oh,
I
I
know I've had enough
absolutely.
time.
Yeah. Yeah.
Very busy night tonight, so let's stay on target
Yeah.
as much as
So
we
they're
can.
they're going to do the best they can.
Okay, I'll go
So,
ahead.
can you move
Yep.
down so Franklin can get in? There we go. That's all right. We can move. We can make space. So similar to the work that the elementary just shared, the secondary does similar work in creating their plans based on data. Who's going first? Bob?
Yep.
You're up. Okay.
So good evening. I'm Bob Griffin, the principal at Auburn Middle School. This is my second year in the district. This is my 15th year in administration, all at the middle level. With all due respect to my other colleagues at the table, I believe middle school years are probably a couple of the most crucial, and I love working with middle school. This evening, I wanted to invite some people who are working directly with students, so you could hear from them around some of the work we are doing all around improving student achievement. Everything I hope you hear tonight is all rooted in student achievement. As principal of the middle school, I know what our test scores are. I know what MEA data looks like. I know what our STAR scores look like. It's not acceptable. And as principal of the middle school, I recognize, though it is a collaborative team effort involving lots of people, I am the captain of the ship. And it's my responsibility, and I am working incredibly hard every single day with a very strong team, and I believe we can move this needle. I believe in this community. I believe in our kids. We can do this. I've invited two teachers to join us this evening, as well as our new assistant principal, Sean McGaw. He's here in our first year. And one teacher I invited to come tonight is our first-year interventionist, that is Maury Hallett. Very briefly, I came before you folks and spoke for just a little bit last winter about what I believed was the strong need for an interventionist, and how I had a little bit of a different vision on what that model toward the intervention could look like, in that I really wanted us to go find and hire a rock star who had skills in literacy and numeracy and executive functioning and data analysis, and could really focus on what do students need now, and let's get it in place and give it to them. And so Mr. Howard is going to talk a little bit, and Miss Mary Elizabeth McCafferty is going to speak a little bit about her really, really important work that she does, again, focused on improving student achievement at the middle school. Just a couple of very, very quick things, and again, I'm working hard to stay on script because I could get talking and spend a good hour talking about any one of these things. But a couple of things I want to highlight that are really a newer focus this year at the middle school. One is our support for new teachers. I want to recruit the best, and I want to hire the best, and then I want to support them and nurture them so they stay. And that has been a new focus this year, in that we are meeting approximately every other week in structured meetings. We are doing things like looking at some research. I've given them each a book we're taking a look about, sort of the This We Believe, the characteristics of middle-level education, where we're talking about just the nuts and bolts stuff. We're just really, that is one small piece of new focus this year, is I really want to make sure we are supporting those folks. Daily student attendance, that is, again, and you hear about goals. I mean, we absolutely have similar goals as the elementary school. We need the students in school each day so they can learn. And that takes a tremendous amount of work, as we're working closely with community resources and families for students to get in school. We have an entire team of people who meet each week, and we're just looking at the student attendance stuff. So far this year, we have increased numeracy and literacy instructional time at the middle school. That has to get better. And we are undertaking the tremendous work of creating a new master schedule for the middle school, which will align instructional time, so we do not have 8 different schedules going on at the same time, so we can better meet the needs of students. You'll hear these folks are going to talk more about specific student intervention stuff. And then the last thing I wanted to just mention, a focus of ours, which lines up with everything going on in the district, district is improving communication and family engagement. And I could speak a lot about that. One of the things I'm doing, and actually tomorrow is our next one, it's the breakfast with the principal. We have 16 parents who are signed up to come in at 7 a.m. We have a local business who is making us breakfast pizzas. And tomorrow our conversation is what is unique about middle school? How are we different from the elementary school and the high school, and an opportunity for parents to also give us feedback. Something new we've added for tomorrow is we have a couple of 8th grade student leaders who have volunteered to provide childcare. So that is not an obstacle for parents who may need to bring along younger siblings. So that is a focus. And then the last thing I have done, and it seems to be being received positively, is every Friday I'm sending out to all of the parents what I call the Friday Family Focus, which really is on some really important nuts and bolts communication things, talking about some things that are going on at the school, new initiatives, upcoming things, changes to our routines. I have learned to keep it relatively brief. If I go on to the second page, I'm probably not everyone's reading it on to page 2, so lots of work with that, but that's just to highlight some of the pieces on my end I wanted to make sure I shared. At this point, I'll hand it off to, again, our new assistant principal, and he has been a tremendous addition, Sean McGaugh.
Hi, I'm Sean McGaugh. I'm the new assistant principal at AMS, and I started my career in middle schools, middle level education, but have spent the past 12 years actually teaching at high school level. And I'm very excited to have joined the AMS team, and so it's been a great adventure so far. So kind of to our slide show here. One of the components of our focus on student achievement has been through our implementation of scientifically based, scientifically validated best practice to help students effectively learn to control their behaviors so that they can stay in the classroom with their skilled teachers. We are using our data, and we're really focusing on collecting data to examine student needs. One of the best examples of that is that we examined the times when our students were having trouble controlling their behavior and discovered that the last 15 minutes of lunch was a real hot spot for student behavior. And so what we did is we implemented a basketball lunch pass program where to help the students who get antsy. And this has worked really well. Our teachers have been phenomenal. We started the Falcon ticket program, and if you stop by the middle school, we have boxes that are this big with thousands of tickets that have been given out by the teachers. For both, we have 2 boxes, one for 7th, one for 8th. And that is encouraging students to use their best behavior, and they're being recognized and rewarded, and it's working. That in the first 2 months, we actually have seen a 12% decrease in overall referrals for behavior issues, and a 20%, and this is the most amazing part, 21% decrease in major referrals. So this is for major behavior problems. So this is really important.
Hello, my name is Maury Hallett. I'm the interventionist at Auburn Middle School, which is a new position in our school this year. So I work directly with our students, both in their classrooms, but also my classroom, which is called the Falcon Lab, to support them academically, and that's done on an individual basis, but also small group basis. And what I also do is I work within our school-wide systems to build positive relationships with our most struggling students. The interventions that I provide are based on our Power School data, our STAR testing data, as well as skill gaps that teachers and teams identify and then communicate with me. And so when I'm working with these struggling students, we're working on things like having them attend school. We're helping them be successful in their classrooms, and we're also helping them build time management and organizational skills. So I work really closely with students staff, but also families. And I can just honestly say that I love coming to work every day, and it's really exciting to walk into school in the morning. So, thank you.
So I'm Mary Elizabeth McCafferty, and I'm the instructional coach at the middle school. And the model that we all use as coaches throughout the district is the student-centered coaching. And what that really means is that I work with teachers, shoulder to shoulder, really to make sure that students are thriving in our classrooms. My job is to not fix teachers, but to improve student achievement and to increase our engagement and all those different things. So I call it being in coaching cahoots, because a coaching cycle sounds kind of, strict and a little boring. And so I am in cahoots with all of our probationary teachers at the middle school, and that would mean from any teacher who's between 1 and year 3 of getting their certificate, and it's wonderful. And I also work with about 2/3 of our continuing contract teachers at any given time, sometimes more. I work daily, sometimes hourly, visiting all these different teachers and working alongside them in their classrooms, talking about what's happening, looking at student work, and trying to figure out problem-solving ideas, whether it's there's a barrier in the classroom with maybe something with behavior, or maybe it's something like the students really not understanding this material and this target, so what do I do? And that's really where I'm a partner in that with all teachers. I provide specific tools and resources because my focus is on student achievement, but it's also on what's on best practice for instructional strategies. So at any given time, what you're going to notice is that I'm up and moving around and getting into classrooms as much as I possibly can, having conversations based on what do students need, what do teachers need in the moment to be able to best address our student population. And that can be, I'm checking in on teachers hour to hour, like on Halloween, when it was all hands on deck. It's a wonderful experience. So one of the things that we've most recently been working on is I work on a very volunteer basis. So if a teacher is not interested, so for example, we had PDCA work in our building, and I went to all of the teams and offered some clarity, some question asking, whatever they needed so that they could set up their PDCAs and their teacher goals. And about, I would say probably a little bit more than 3/4 of those teachers asked me to come in separately and do a one-on-one with them so that they could have more of a personalized interaction to get their PDCA goals done. And so that's just what I do at the middle school.
Any questions for the middle school from AMS?
Not a boring day.
No. Thank you.
Very busy.
Okay, so we are primarily focused on 2 very significant areas. We laid this foundation late last winter in having conversations with department heads around 2 key areas, 2 significant data points for the high school, as for our high school, that you could find for any high school in the state of Maine, and that had to do with our students meeting the state benchmarks in the MEA, which for us is the SAT. So when we talk about student achievement, that's where we're going after, and our graduation rate. So those 2 are right out of the gate, those 2 key components. Earlier asked what would those benchmarks be for us. We as a staff identified moving from 16 and 17% of meeting the state benchmark to 25% in the area of student achievement for math and ELA respectively, and elevating our graduation rate from 78% to 82%. There was a whole lot of conversation through the summer and in the early parts of the school year, end of the summer, with our department heads of where's that meaningful mark. But I just lay that foundation in terms of those are our goals that we're working toward. Over the last few years, we have really improved our practice at utilizing data. Prior to that, data had been kind of behind the scenes and really just shared with a handful of folks, the department heads, the guidance counselors, and admin. This year, we've made a very overt decision to bring it out to the front and to move it forward so that everyone could develop some collective efficacy behind it and really have some meaning to that. A little later, I'll have Lisa Whitman, our math department chair, will be here to discuss how we've kind of partnered with the middle school to really lay some foundations of making sure that the instructional practices are matching for both achievement and toward graduation. A unified system of using data. So we've talked about data walls, and we've actually kind of been envious of our elementary partners who have been using data walls for quite some time. So we've, like I said, we brought it to the forefront of how do we utilize data. So we utilize data for all 4 of our grade levels, 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th. One of the things that has allowed us to really dive deeper into utilizing these data walls has been the evolution of us doing PSAT testing with our 9th grade, 10th grade, and 11th grade students. So now we have some more stable information coming. The greatest challenge for us is when we have our incoming 8th graders into 9th grade to have a metric that really gives us a good benchmark of where students are at. And that's an ongoing conversation that we're having of what makes sense for that. Anyway, we update our data walls monthly. This is a new task for us. Staff analyze these data walls to identify gaps in student learning and progress toward graduation. Again, we're looking at 2 places simultaneously. Where are they in their achievement, and where are they toward graduation? They've been created by the departments, and we monitor it for on pace in 2 ways. On pace to graduation and on pace where they in the here and now for their course, so that teachers can have information to be able to say, where are they, if I have a 10th grade student, where are they in their pace toward graduation, if there's a gap from prior, and where are they in their actual achievement in the here and now, so that instruction can be crafted and adapted to meet the need of the student. We have a staff member who's an expert and a volunteer in collecting and analyzing data, dedicated to making these data walls effective and meaningful for supporting staff in the process. One of the biggest tricks is with having all the data is to put it in a meaningful way, in a visual presentation that makes sense for staff. And for department to department, that looks something different. Some have them in columns, some have them color-coded, and some have said, can we all just be have it in a uniform way? So we have that option for them to be able to do that, but in essence, we're really tracking where are they in the here and now in their course, where are they toward graduation, and when we talk about graduation, we're talking about credits, and then where are they with their achievement. To come back to some of the work that we did this summer and how we got to the place of identifying, moving ourselves to 25%, we really started to look at those students who we could identify in the partially meet area and say, can we move the needle on that, and what are those skills that need to happen? Are we talking about literacy and context, or are we talking about numeracy? What specific skills do those students need that we need to move from partially meeting to meeting for the state benchmarks? Make it go. All right, you have it in front of you. We'll get this to happen. Lisa's going to help me. She's my math guru. This kind of summarizes some of the other pieces. Our data analysis, you got to go back one. Staff have participated in data analysis of data walls with the PSAT and the SAT. They've done this in PLCs, in department meetings, to become better versed in using data to support instruction. So again, I come back to, we can have all the data, but we got to create meaning from that data and do something and have it matter to us so that we can use that information to support our students. As a result of analyzing the PSAT and SAT, staff have identified areas of weakness amongst their students. So within their classrooms, they've been able to figure out where their reading scores are and where their math scores. And that helps them inform where they need to support and to identify prior to a unit lesson. Skills and strategies have been identified that will, excuse me.
Water.
I got it. I can work through it. Oh. That will, wow. I can do this.
Hands up.
You're next up for water. Keep going.
Skills and strategies that will support students to become better critical thinkers. So it's not just those skills that we're talking about as far as reading, but the critical thinking skills, because that's really where the main learning results lie in, is the critical thinking skills. Staff are working to implement effective instructional strategies in their classroom that will support student success and achievement. So they're really honing in as a collective group, whether they're cohorts of a department or an entire department, of what are those strategies that they want to employ, so that they have the option to determine, when we talk about literacy, are we talking about words in context, or are we talking about analysis of a piece of literature? Thank you. So that they can hone in, they identify where that gap is, and then they can become dedicated and meaningful into how they're going to approach that with a lesson. And then staff have created proactive and reactive plans for students in instruction based on data analysis of the data wall. So where are their gaps now, and how do I remediate what's happened in the past before they came to me, and how do I plan accordingly for the rest of the school year? Does that make sense? We still have to get to Russ.
I know, Russ, yeah, Franklin.
Take the time it takes.
You have stuff, and we can always come back to this in the future. Franklin, Merrill Hill.
Just for a second. So as you know, I'm Russ Barlow. I'm the principal at Franklin Merrill Hill. You may not know. What I did was I brought two of my esteemed colleagues. To my right is Melissa McLeod. She is my team leader. To my left, I got a lot of faith in her. This is Leandra Texera. She works with the students at Merrill Hill. So I just will say that really we are where the rubber hits the road. What ends up happening is where the elementary school loses their 5% in terms of attendance, and the middle school loses their 5%. I was just doing the math. And, you know, if you said to me, what is your biggest problem? It's not bad kids. It's not. It's gaps in education. So that's the biggest problem we have. Gaps come from all over. But the biggest gap is when a student doesn't attend. This is still why we have a 45-minute period. But when a student, I have to put a plug in, because when a student does not attend, sometime at the high school they miss 90 minutes. Or so when they don't attend a day, it's 45 minutes, and we all know 32 minutes is a pretty good class period with an at-risk kid. My biggest problem is attendance. It's truancy. Michelle knows that. I work on that every single day. I've been out to most of the homes of all of the students in the district. That's our biggest problem. Second is because of the gaps in education and the gaps in the days and gaps with truancy, the second biggest problem that we have that we always try to overcome, and the greatest gift anyone ever gave to me, was the ability to read. And reading is our second biggest challenge in the building. If you can't read, you can't do math, okay? But you really struggle in the two biggest areas in life, reading and in math. Those you need to have. So generally speaking, and I mentioned this to Melissa, but generally speaking, we really push the reading initiative. Now, I'm going to extend it a little bit to a fourth situation, and that's testing and trying to get kids motivated to test, okay? And I've had the conversations with Michelle about how the hell am I going to get them motivated to take the SAT? So we've started in small increments, and you're going to see that our goals revolve around small incremental success. We started with testing. Melissa will discuss that. That's our building goal, and motivating students in testing. And then the second goal that we really work on, and it's really 2 and 3, is observational when I go into a classroom. And it's whatever we see, and some of the weaknesses that are occurring in the classroom, especially around the template of the Marzano that we've been using. 13 and 14 are the areas that we have identified. Where did that come from? I finally got the confidence as a leader to send out a survey. I sent out a survey, voila, what came back? Eye observation questions. And then we discussed it as a staff, turned it over to the staff, and they've made, my colleagues here have made some goals around that. So that's what we do all day. If you have any questions after, I'll be glad to answer them. But we'll start with Melissa, and Melissa's the building goal, and then we'll go over to Leandra. Okay? Thank you.
So that was a great segue from Ross about what I'm going to just talk to you about, which is our ongoing work with testing in the building. As Russ mentioned, our students had a lot of issues with buying into a test or finding the motivation to really try and represent themselves well on a test. I think that we've done a lot of work with that piece as far as getting them to engage in the testing, to really perform the way that we know that they can on the testing. The next step, however, though, is to address the other piece that Russ talked about, which is where all our students have gaps. We know that a good test does a couple of things. It allows a student to perform to the best of their ability, but it also gives feedback, gives information to teachers to better educate them. We started doing the CASAS exam, which Russ has talked to you about, I'm sure, over and over. And we started to do that on paper because that was what we had access to at the time. Over the course of the last few years that we've done the CASAS, we've transitioned most of our students, basically almost all but a few seniors, to go to the electronic version of the CASAS, which opened up some opportunities for our staff. And that is that it gives a much more comprehensive and usable score report for students. So my suggestions to Russ this year was to try to find a way to start doing some development with our staff and understanding those score reports and being able to implement them into our classes so that we can say, you know, I have these 10 kids sitting in front of me and this is sort of where their gaps lie. All I've provided for you on the slide is just sort of an example of what one of those score reports are. Our staff is just beginning to engage in these and just beginning to take them apart. But you can see that it does, it's kind of the paper copy isn't very readable, and I apologize for that, but you can see that it breaks it down among key literacy components and then key mathematical literacy components, and gives you an idea of each student and where they score. Okay. There also, for each of the subject areas, the math or the reading, gives you kind of a narrative of where that student comes in as far as the NRS level of educational attainment, which is a pretty broad definition of where they kind of fall on grade level. But what that does give us the opportunity to do, and this is what my work is going to be for the staff, once we've completed all the CASAS testing, which we basically are completed now, we'll be able to give our students like some idea, like Mr. Murphy's class, he's one of our new teachers in the building that I'm mentoring. So I pulled some of his data up, and that way I can say, hey, look, these are your 10 kids, and this is where they range. So when you're thinking about your lessons and you're thinking about differentiating your lessons, you know that you're going to have to hit some kids that are down here on reading level 1, but you also have students that are up here on reading level 6. So we in the past have had success with finding resources that we can provide the same content at different reading levels. So challenging teachers to be thinking about ways that we can engage all the students without alienating either the students that are up high or the students that are struggling. So my hope is that by the time the next couple of weeks rolls around, I'll be able to give each teacher a profile for their classes to just get some idea of where those ranges are within their class. The other piece that will be continuing work for us is that once we have a student that has achieved 246 or higher on the CASAS exam, we're all fighting a cold at Franklin. It's like the whole building is sick right now. Then they go on to our AccuPlacer test. And so the next step will be to try to find some of the same kind of analysis and data for our students that have achieved that level to better, again, meet the needs of each classroom and each group of students that we have in front of us. So,
just as a tiny bit of anecdotals, when we first began testing in terms of the CASAS test, and it was on a piece of paper and pencil, what I had was Leandra did the English the reading. And I had Jeff Morris, one of the math teachers, look at the math questions. And what we did was we took the questions, we broke them down into the learning targets. And that really helped the students the second time around when they took the CASAS test. Just so that you know, it's an adult ed test. It's a job test. So it means something in the students' lives. The other piece to it is every 72 to 128, I know we get away from seat time, but technically, every 72 to 128 hours of seat time, the student should produce 3 points on the CASAS. And the beauty of it is our SMART goal is around 50% of the students in the building who attend 80% of the days get 50% get the 3 points. We've done it. We do it pretty consistently if the students are there 80% of the days. So we have a definite connection between the two. We've also began breaking down the AccuPlacer test into the learning targets, okay? So, and then that's another question, you know, Michelle and I have sort of batted the breeze a little bit about the SATs. So we'll see where that goes. We're getting there, slow but sure. Leandra, she's very nervous.
Just a little.
All right, just take your time.
Okay. So, as Russ mentioned, we are focusing on the domains 13 and 14 for professional growth. And if you look on the screen, you can see that we had staff take a survey to determine, you know, where they feel. And this is not meant to call out staff and be like, oh, well, this is not what you're doing. Just kind of a way of being like, hey, these are things that I need help with. So according to our numbers, the two domains were 13 and 14. And if you look at the numbers, they're kind of low down on the proficiency level of 4. So those are the two things: helping students engage in cognitively complex tasks and using formative assessment to track progress. Mr. Neer, would you mind going to the next slide, please?
Absolutely.
Thank you. All right, so we wanted to give teachers a way of feeling empowered. So these are the domains that you're working on. This is something you actually feel like you need help with. So we, like I said, we said that we would work on 13 and 14. And teachers were then given the opportunity to work on these two domains in their PDCAs. And that's not just saying, oh, these are the things I'm going to do. It's kind of I'm going to seek out resources on how to engage students in cognitively complex tasks. I am going to implement these strategies in my classroom. I'm going to reflect on them, and then the next neat part about it is giving a staff presentation and saying, hey, Franklin staff, these are the things that I did, these are the things that I researched, and this is what went well, this is what didn't. And so for the first semester, we are going to be using formative assessment to track progress. That's what our focus is right now. And I can vouch that we spent a lot of time on this today for half-day Wednesdays, just figuring out ways that could work in ways to just make students aware of their progress in a way that is helpful and not, you know, making them lose their confidence. And then, yeah, so we just really want to focus on collaborative learning and making sure that our teachers are feeling supported and that they
Thank you.
have voice. Yeah, sorry, thanks.
You did well. Good, you did very nicely.
Thank you.
Are there any questions from the board at this time?
Do you have access to instructional coaches? Do you have access to instructional coaches? Is that an opportunity available to you where you're talking about gaps in their learning? Or is it a necessary, addition to your staff or a consultation?
I would say a lot of the access would come through if we really needed it. I would ask Scott.
Okay.
And I would ask Bob.
Okay.
And the school district's very good to us in terms of our needs.
Okay, great.
And I feel like we're really supported, to be very honest with you. In the past, we do have some Bates College students that come over. Somehow, the youth can relate to the youth. And you know, we do have a Bates College student who comes over now. So that's usually the relationship that we have.
And I know historically, like the technology coach will come in and do a presentation to staff and provide contact information. So if at any point any of the staff did express a need in a certain area, we definitely have access to those resources above and beyond just our peer leadership with one another.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
We need to set up.
Good work.
And,
We're going
and
to take a 5-minute break.
Well, that'd be
And,
good.
thank you all. It was very interesting, very nicely done.
set up.
How do I turn it off?
on the air. This is November 6th, and we will begin with the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. You're good. Introductions, and we'll start over here with Mr. Manili.
Bob Manili, Ward 1.
Karen Matthew, Ward 3.
Brian Belknap, Ward 4.
Faith Fontaine at large.
Bonnie Hayes, Ward 2.
Katie Gronin, Superintendent.
Pat Gaudier at large.
Dan Poisson, Ward 5.
Elfrida Fournier, Mayor's Representative from the City Council.
Michelle McCollum, Assistant Superintendent.
Adam Hansen, Business Manager.
Emma Sampson, Student Representative. Anna LeBlanc, Student Representative.
Welcome, ladies, over in the end. Communications, anybody have communications today?
Yes, I do. Where would we put, well, never mind. The communications that I do have are a few of them.
Are they all on the same topic?
Yeah, they're basically, I mean, the communications have to do with requesting that we can take, the city council has some concerns about Mr. Wessler and what had occurred, and then a few of them have sent some information, and I would like to just say it in their own words so that you'll understand where they're coming from. One is there's a request that the council in some way address the situation that happened at EL regarding their attempt to start focus groups using the intercom and a set of lists. At least this is the word that's going around. We could have a workshop and ask the school committee to come and explain, or we could have staff do some workshop and report back. And that was from one person, and another one had another communication as well. And in terms of that, it says, hold on, I've got too many.
I think Scott's going to speak to stuff he has prepared something.
Right.
And you can certainly send those to me.
Okay, yeah, and there was another one, and they were addressing, they were talking about the possibility of CSAP. Well, I know we haven't received any information as far as the school committee is concerned, and, I don't know where in that process you are, but, we really need some information, like to know, where we're going with that. The other person was interested in, just, looking at the Seeds of Peace camp that has taken place, the people have had the Green Dot training, and that would be another thing that we would like to have you consider investigating, because it is in a more natural environment. It's more day-to-day. It's not targeting anybody. It's just free-flowing. Yes, Seeds of Peace and Green Dot.
So I'll give an update. I'll feed it superintendent's update.
Okay,
and then
today?
you'll have more information, yes.
Thank you. Yeah,
You're
that's what,
welcome.
yeah.
Any other communications anybody have?
Yeah, I have a communication from the bottom of my heart. I want to congratulate everyone who won the election, and I also want to say that the three of us who did not win
are losers?
No, not losers. That does not mean that we do not care about
Thank you,
the
Bob.
school system and the students and the teachers.
Absolutely, Bob.
It's been
Thank
a
you very
pleasure.
much. Thank you very much. Superintendent Grondin?
Yeah, I have two communications. I want to thank Celeste Bodette and Stephanie Maris, who served on the 150th planning for our big birthday. They represented the school department at all the meetings. They put in a lot of time this weekend for the reunion, so I do want to thank them for a lot of hard work of meetings, organizing, getting people involved. So I want to give a shout out to them. Also to Mike Davis for hosting at Walton, Todd Sampson for his work to prepare for the Friday night game, Peter Robinson and his wife Dawn for serving pancake breakfast, Scott Anir and Shelley and Michelle for being at EL to help support, and Darren Avery. If I've missed anyone, you know who you are of all the work that was put into the alumni. I was at the library on Sunday with others to share what the new high school is going to be, and it was wonderful to hear stories. People were going through their yearbooks and talking about their fond memories about being in EL and how appreciative they were of the weekend, and so a lot of positive feedback. So I want to give a shout out to that.
And that was the library at the high school.
Yeah, the library at the high school. I also want to say that our Leveraging Learning Conference is tomorrow and Friday, and today our staff had a workshop. And in honor of Tom Kendall, who passed away in September, who was a very big involvement in the Leveraging Learning Conference, which is going to have its 9th annual with over 90 participants, we gave an award to Chrissy Thompson, and she received the first time award for the Tom Kendall Innovative Teacher Award for all the work that she's done with the Leveraging Learning Conference and her work with technology in her classroom, so I wanted to let you all know that. We're very fortunate to have Kristen Zimke, who just wrote a book, Read the World, Rethinking Literacy, for empathy and action in digital age, and she is with us. She presented with our staff, our elementary teachers today, and she will be at the conference the next 2 days. And I invite any school committee members and those elected, if they would like to come by tomorrow or Friday, just check in at the table, and you're welcome to engage in the conference.
I have a little one that's going to participate tomorrow, and she's very excited about it.
Is she one of the Twitters?
She is one of the Twitters.
There we go.
She's very excited. Anything else?
Nope.
Okay, moving on to the consent agenda. Could I have a motion on the consent agenda, please?
So moved.
A second?
Second.
Any discussion on the consent agenda? All right, all in favor? All opposed? Motion carries. This is a public participation time at this time, and I will read our rules and regulations on this.
Well, he knows his.
Okay. The school committee asks the public to remember our system-wide code of conduct and the 6 core values of respect, honesty, courage, compassion, fairness, and responsibility while directly addressing the group. Our policy, JIC, states that we expect people to treat others as you would like to be treated. Use language that is appropriate and kind, and be truthful and forthright in speech and actions. Per our policy, BEDH, public participation at school committee meetings, citizens may comment on any general topics related to the school system during this portion of the agenda. Comments related to specific agenda items may be held until the appropriate time. Please be succinct and speak once for less than 3 minutes or only 3 minutes. Other limitations may be necessary. The school committee may respond to your concerns at a later date by answering through the administration or placing the item on the agenda for future participation. It is requested that comments related to specific personnel be channeled privately to the appropriate administrator. So I'm asking everybody to participate 3 minutes, only 3 minutes. We have a very heavy agenda tonight. So 3 minutes, please. Be succinct. And if you hear what you're saying that is being said previously, please acknowledge that you feel the same way. Mr. Anir.
Good evening. My name is Scott Anir. I'm the principal at Edward Little High School. I live at 24 Coachman Ave in Auburn. I have 3 children thriving in the Auburn School Department. I also have over 900 other students I consider my own children and over 100 staff that are my family. I think it's important for you to hear from me tonight. I take the responsibility of my role at Edward Little High School very seriously. I wanted you to hear from me that we made a mistake when we called students down for focus groups. The way that was done was wrong, and I'm sorry that this was done. It did not honor students. We would never attempt something to hurt kids, and I'm sorry that this has happened. I wanted you to know that yesterday I apologized to our school for this mistake and the terrible hurt that it has caused. I am deeply sorry that we have hurt students in our Edward Little family. We have problems, but we face them head on. We are a great school with great kids and great teachers. We will no longer be working with Steve Wessler. We had a staff meeting on Monday to process last Tuesday and the week, our feelings and our thoughts, and how we will respond and grow as a school. The staff was be able to begin the process of identifying next steps and strategies. A prevailing theme was that staff wanted more understanding and strategies for themselves to build a school for diversity, equity, and inclusion. Thursday, tomorrow, I'm scheduled to be part of a meeting with Virginia Durrani and Laura Ligori from MindPower to discuss what we can build together to support our teachers and students. In addition, I've been in communication with the YWCA to investigate how we might be able to work together. This is all from the idea that we look as a community-based partnerships to do this work. Myself, the administration team, and the teachers are firmly committed and united to move forward as a we, so that we face our problems and issues and bring about change. Most importantly, we are beginning our work focused on the adult aspects so that we can be equipped to support our students. Also, we are a good school. All staff are very caring of every student. When any student struggles, we feel that struggle personally. When a student succeeds, we are eager to celebrate their success. It is time we change how we are portrayed. There is indeed a tremendous amount of Eddie pride in our building. I'm eager to work with each of you, the new committee, our parents, and our community. We can grow in our challenges and make this city proud. I have invested my heart and soul to the city of Auburn and its students in the Edward Little High School. When anybody in our EL family feels pain, I feel that pain. I am truly and deeply sorry for the mistake and the pain that it has caused. We are prepared to move forth with our EL family for the best of our kids. I love our students and I love our staff. Thank you.
Thank you, Scott. Thank you, Mr. O'Neill. Thank you.
Hi, my name's Stacy Fournier. I live at 47 Cherryvale Circle in Auburn. I have a 14-year-old son who's a freshman at Yale. A lot of the words I have to say, I'm moved to tears by Mr. Neer right now. So it's what I needed to hear, it's what I wanted to hear, but I feel like my words that I've spent for the last 3 days writing still need to be heard, so I want to say them. But please keep in mind that I truly take his apology to heart, okay? We have had many highs and many lows within the Auburn school system, my family personally, since my son started kindergarten at Short Heights. I was extremely nervous to have AJ start high school. Nervous because I'm a parent, and I'm sure we all have anxiety about our kiddos starting this chapter of their lives. Nervous for my so introverted, non-team athletic sports son, who is a third-degree junior black belt in karate. How would he do at EL? How would he find a good friend group? Would he be happy and successful? I was more than pleasantly surprised that he is loving high school. He will never admit that in person. But I know and I can tell he has all A's and 1 B+, and 2 AP classes. We couldn't be prouder of him. We went to open house, we met the teachers, and I was excited for him. I wanted to go back to school. They seem to really love the students and to be excited about teaching. His words, not mine. They actually want to teach us, Mom. It's so fun. They recognized, many of the teachers recognized verbally in the open house to the parents that the elementary and middle schools had not adequately prepared the incoming freshmen for basic but key skills like note-taking or managing homework. Almost every teacher explained the extra steps they were taking to get the kids up to speed and ready for the rest of the 3 years at high school and college. Again, could not be pleased. Then last week happened. I commend Laura Garcia and the rest of the group that can make every meeting well done. I watched the tape version the next day at work, and I had to shut my office door because I started yelling at my computer while I was watching this. It had to be one of the saddest days in the Auburn school system and Auburn in general that I can ever imagine. I know this was turned down last week, but only for that night. A lawyer, really? Assess Ms. Grondin the way it is spelled out in your bylaws. A lawyer only suggests that shortcuts are happening or things are being covered up. If a fair assessment is done, then the right outcome will happen, and no one on either side of the argument should be able to fight the assessment. Follow your own rules. It would be easy for me to ignore the most horrific item of last week's meeting, as my son was not singled out and does not fit any of the identified minority groups at the school. But as a parent who has worked very hard to teach my son to love and like all, no matter of their skin color, religion, or who they like, etc., I just can't let it go. The unanswered question is, how was it determined that singling students out by name would solve the problem was a good idea? Why not put up sign-up sheets and make announcements about special focus groups to help make their school a better place? I truly believe that many students would have signed up for that. As a taxpayer, and more importantly, as a loving human being, what measures will the administration take to resolve this behavior, which Mr. Anir just said? The silver lining was that this incident created a wonderful conversation in my home about how to love all and how to support his friends that were directly affected by this event, and how to not help linger the hatred and the sour feelings in the school. That's the wonderful thing. I want to say this about Mr. Griffin and Mr. Anir. I've had many conversations with them about concerns I had with my son in the transition, about concerns I had with the middle school, and I truly feel like they listened, they took what I said, and they actually put into action some of the things I said, which helped Andrew transition. I think they're wonderful people. I think it was a mistake. I don't want to judge them. I just need to know what steps the school system, not just Mr. Anir, is going to take to make sure that this never ever happens again.
Thank you. Can you,
I'm
please,
hurrying.
please.
I'm hurrying, but I
I
have
hear
words
you.
that need to be said. I'm sorry. So, not at this meeting, obviously, but in the upcoming meetings, I want a formal, what are we doing from the school committee about how to make sure that this doesn't happen again. I don't know if it's sensitivity training and all the wonderful things that Mr. Anir said, but something has to be done and something has to be formal to the parents, and I would expect that there's formal apologies out to the students that were directly affected by this. That's all I have to say.
Thank you, Stacy.
I'm gonna try really hard to stick to the 3 minutes.
Thank you.
School board members, Superintendent Grondin, and members of the Auburn community. My name is Brianne Crocker. As some of you may know, I'm a second grade teacher at Sherwood Heights and vice president of the Auburn Education Association. I've spoken in this room before with spur-of-the-moment thoughts and opinions that have come up. Tonight I come with you with something more prepared. I became vice president of our local teachers union to be a voice for the teachers in our district. I have often heard it said that teachers are afraid to speak or unwilling to voice their concerns. I am neither. I have attended every school board meeting this year. I have mostly sat and observed, listened, and pondered, something my father always told me to do before forming an opinion. I have seen passionate parents come speak for the needs of their children. How I wish all our students in our district had advocates like this. I have heard concerns over MCL and PBL, test scores, and the superintendent's contract. But as I continue to listen, I couldn't help but think of the students I know who don't have people to speak for them, and what concerns they would want advocated for them, what issues really affected them in the classroom. And the reality is, it's not who's in charge, what curriculum we're following, or programs we're using, or proficiency on state tests. Most of these students have concerns like, will I eat tonight? Will I have a bed to sleep in? Will I have to hide my little sister in the closet because mommy and daddy are fighting again? Will dad be too drunk or high to sign my permission slip for the field trip tomorrow? And then I thought about how this also affects teachers from day to day. We wonder, did all my students eat last night? Do I have something for them just in case? Did they have to sleep in their car on someone's floor? Were the police called to their house again? How will this affect how they behave in the classroom? Will they fall asleep during math? Will they get angry during writing and start throwing things? Will I be able to de-escalate the situation or not? Will I have to evacuate the room? Will I get things thrown at me, get hit, get bit, or spit at? Will I be able to keep everyone safe? I realize that the biggest concern facing both students and teachers stems from poverty and trauma within our community. I started talking to more teachers who agreed that behaviors stemming from trauma and poverty are the biggest day-to-day issues faced in the classroom. I voiced this at the last school board meeting when test scores were brought up. I wanted to advocate for the children living in poverty and struggling with trauma, how hard it is to focus on education when their basic needs are not being met, how hard it is to catch up when you come to school already behind your peers and lacking resources. I also wanted to advocate for the teachers in our district who every day take children for who they are and where they're at and help them grow. I wanted to make our community see what life is really like in a classroom. Unfortunately, after I spoke, I heard from another community member that we need to stop using poverty and trauma as an excuse. I could feel my face get hot with a mixture of hurt and anger. I then realized why teachers aren't speaking. No one seems to want to hear what we are saying. Trauma and poverty are not an excuse. They are a reality faced by every teacher every day in Auburn. It comes in quiet forms like lack of food or winter clothing, or loudly, quite literally, as in the middle of independent reading, you hear a student running down the hall, swearing and scattering chairs, while teachers and administrators follow to make sure everyone is safe. It is not an excuse. It is the reality we live in, a reality you cannot fully appreciate or comprehend until you are there yourself day after day. I encourage all members and stakeholders in Auburn to volunteer in a school, spend some significant time and see for yourself. We as teachers are asking for your help, asking for you to listen to us. We need to have a dialogue of on what a community we can do to support these students, help them feel safe, and catch up academically. As a teacher, it is emotionally and mentally draining to struggle with behaviors day in and day out. We will continue to lose good teachers in Auburn if we can't come together as a community to help with the poverty and trauma happening every day in and out of the classroom. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Victoria Langelier. I live at 217 3rd Street. And I'm not here to speak for myself. I'm here to speak for a community member that didn't dare come to speak. And I'm going to be reading her statement verbatim. I'm writing as a parent of a 7th grade girl. She did not have a voice during the survey from Steve Wessler. This man brought young girls and boys into a room, served them snacks, and then asked for the door to be closed. My daughter said her and others were scared to get up and move. They were told in a roundabout way that their parents knew about these questions. She stated some girls were visually upset, and Steve continued to ask questions without paying attention to their physical needs. I know that sexual assault is something that all students should be educated about, but is it not the place in this survey to ask sexual questions and gender questions? She said many girls didn't even understand the questions, and Steve made them feel inadequate and dumb for being confused. In one instance, a girl's opinions were questioned by Steve. Her religion was also in question. My daughter also should not have been to be ashamed of her religion in school. She does not push her beliefs on others, and I feel these surveys definitely pushed things on her. She felt like she was wrong in her beliefs and came home rather upset about it. She goes to school to learn. Already in middle school, they have limited content time, and this was a waste of time and energy. She missed precious content time and had to stay after to get caught up so that she could be successful to do her own homework that evening. Not at all acceptable in my book. I pay taxes to have my child taught, not to have her take stupid surveys that have no connection with her education. All funding for these programs and programs like this in the future need to be run by the parents. It opens up avenues that the school was not ready to handle from victims and whatnot. It provided typical kids knowledge that didn't even know before starting the school day. We need to sign permission slips for good touch, bad touch, so why are we not signing for surveys like this without permission? My husband and I are appalled and feel very violated on many levels. Our daughter was presented info she never knew and was placed in uncomfortable situations that she would never have to be placed in. With this, I have lost all hope that the school department will provide my children with the best education possible unless changes are made from the top up.
Thank you. Yes, you may.
Again, I'm Bob Griffin, the principal of the middle school. I am not a community member, though I'd like to say my wife and I are giving real strong consideration to moving to this community in the next year or two. I think it is important for all of you and for everyone sitting behind me and everyone watching on television to hear very clearly from me that I believe I owe everyone an apology. And I'm discussing the Steve Wessler stuff, and this is tough for me. Yet I have conversations every day with students, and in all those conversations I tell them I make mistakes every day, and I have lots of gray hair. And we learn from our mistakes. And I want you to hear from me, I'm learning from what is a mistake that I made as principal of the middle school. And you're not, I don't want you to hear any excuses from me. I own this. My mistake. I'm the principal. I wasn't clear as to which day Mr. Wessler was coming to the middle school. There had been a couple of cancellations and reschedulings, and I was not sure of which day he was coming. When he arrived that morning, I made the decision that I, at that time, was comfortable with him meeting with a few small groups of students. I asked that I had a few staff members and a few teachers identify some students who we believed were leaders and potential leaders and would have something valuable to add to the conversation. I do not know what exactly was discussed in that conversation with Mr. Wessler and the students. What I should have done is told Mr. Wessler that I was not prepared for him to be there, and I should have told him that I apologized for him traveling a distance that we needed to reschedule. I made a mistake, and I own that. That is absolutely on me, and I owe the students of Auburn Middle School, the staff, I owe all of you, I owe the parents, I owe this community an apology from me. I have learned a tremendous amount from this, and I want you to hear from me. Under my watch at the middle school, such mistakes will not ever happen again.
Thank you, Bob.
Thank you very much.
Hi.
Hi, I'm Suzette Sear. I live at 121 6th Street.
Just bring that mic really close.
Oh.
Please. Thank you.
Can you hear me now?
Blow in it and see.
I'm Suzette Sear.
Yeah.
Yes.
I live
Thank
at
you.
121 6th Street.
Thank you.
I'm not here to cast blame or to create polarity, but to share a perspective which I hope is helpful in creating more understanding about minority groups and kids with differences. So I have a daughter who struggles with severe food allergies to eggs, dairy, nuts, that includes peanuts, tree nuts, shellfish. She has celiac disease, so she cannot have any wheat or gluten. Reactions when exposed or in contact with these foods are managed with an EpiPen medication and Benadryl. She has legal rights and protections under the Americans with Disability Act, and she has a 504 plan, which we request yearly for safe accommodations in school-based activities. We have asked over the years for teacher training of the use of, not just the use of EpiPen education, but understanding anaphylaxis and having teachers and staff, and including bus drivers, know how to respond to a potential medical emergency. We've also asked for education for the cafeteria food staff in safe handling practices and accommodations in the lunchroom, because without education, we cannot possibly know how to use these prevention strategies or know what to look for accurate signs and symptoms of a reaction or anaphylaxis. And I do want to thank all the wonderful teachers, the guidance counselors, the nurses, principals, vice principals, who have taken time to listen to us over the years about our daughter's needs. She has had some minor reactions, and the nurses have always been good at communicating and treating her. And thank God there's never been an event that we've had to use the EpiPen in the school. And I'll share a story in a few seconds here about my daughter. But first, I really want to take the time to talk about something that a few people have already brought up. And that's the issue of discrimination and exclusion of certain minority groups in the school. It really frustrates me, and it brings up my own feelings, which are triggered by my daughter's own experiences of exclusion and discrimination due to her food allergies. And I want to talk about inclusion tonight, and that's what this picture represents. Inclusion matters, and it's really the law for kids with food allergies and other civil rights issues, as we know. And when we think about inclusion, it's a collaborative mindset which really considers perspectives and needs of other people. The collaboration mindset allows us to create strategies and solutions to make it possible so we all belong. So the picture represents the different mindsets, and each of these mindsets might represent different experiences of individuals or even choices and use of language that we use to communicate messages. So it could represent how school administration might use policy over versus power with, or create barriers of exclusion or inclusion. The mindsets also affect whether a child will feel accepted, included, understood, valued, and heard. So what has been brought to light by our students and what they're saying about their experiences of discrimination that were written up in the Boston Globe this summer, and then more recently calling down the minority groups of students in the front office for focus groups, really represents the pictures on the left and in the middle. And I really truly believe that, as the principals mentioned, that administrators have good intentions to create the inclusion mindset, but it's really definitely been confusing and unclear because there's really been no transparency or communication about the programs or what they're implementing. I'm confused about the purpose of Steve Wessler, the money the Auburn School Department has paid out to him, and what he's been trying to do with the minority groups. I think the understanding of how to go about the strategies of engagement with the students, it really does not include an inclusion mindset at all. Kids do not want to feel different, bullied, left out. They want to feel belonging and to fit in with their peers. they also look to us as adults to lead from example. And I don't really feel it's the kids with the differences that are the issues. And I'm not sure if the focus group purpose is to try and help the kids or is to try and help the adults. So I'm not really sure what the intention of the whole thing was. I really feel that kids are generally really open and accepting unless they're taught differently by the adults around them. And I really think that our students and kids have a lot to teach the adults if the adults really want to listen. So I'm really seeing that it's the belief systems and policies and the mindsets which aren't allowing exclusion to happen. And I would ask that Peter Sear yield his 3 minutes if possible, so
Just
I can
go ahead,
continue
please.
talking. I really feel that we need to have systems and policies and mindsets that don't allow exclusion and that are allowing inclusion to happen so our kids don't feel devalued. And it seems to me that there needs to be some training more with administration and the staff, and we need to start educating the educators more about this. And then the adults and the teachers need to start role modeling inclusion in our classrooms and with our policies. I think that students need to be invited to be ambassadors on their own free will to represent a minority group at the table. And that's really how you bring school and community together. So I just want to end this, hopefully briefly, with my daughter's experience, because it's all connected to the same mindsets. So for us, there has been a lack of responsiveness to requests for teacher training on anaphylaxis, a lack of wanting to change or have food safety training in the cafeteria, or an overall policy on managing life-threatening food allergies in the Auburn school system. I have been suggesting to nurses, principals, vice principals, 3 different school administrators for 10 years about we need some overall policies for safety. I've been told there's a school allergy policy in the works. I've not gotten any feedback over the past few years when I've made phone calls on where we stand with this policy, even though I leave messages. I've offered my expertise and time as a nurse practitioner to help build the policies, and I've offered free training for staff for the past 10 years. I've even connected with the Lewiston Auburn physician for school-based health, and I have her support, but still there's no change. So it's very discouraging to me, and I'm tired. I feel like I've had to settle for less, and that our needs don't matter, and that the school board really has more important things on their agenda. So I feel like I want this taken into consideration when we're reviewing any contracts for the next administration. I also don't know if you're aware that 1 in 13 children have food allergies. 37 million Americans have food allergies. People die every year of food allergies, and sometimes those are kids in school. So one of my own daughter's experience here dealing with the city of Auburn, Maine School Department administration, this is prior to Katie Grondin's tenure, when I brought up my daughter's needs and concerns about food allergies and needing accommodations in the cafeteria, the principal said that she wanted the superintendent to attend the meeting. I was left feeling like I was the first parent that had ever asked for accommodations, and that it was something really unusual. Now, as you know, you see kids in the cafeteria, they're all lined up, elbow to elbow. Milk is spilling into my daughter's area. Taco cheese is flying everywhere, and she was scared and not feeling safe. So what I requested was, will you please let my daughter have arm's distance away from other kids like we do at home to have safe space. And the superintendent met that request with asking the principal for some tape. And masking tape was given to the superintendent of schools, and he proceeded to put a piece of masking tape down half of the table, and he told me, your daughter can sit on this side, okay? This is, I feel safe with this. We cannot guarantee that the other parts of the tables would be washed, okay? So my daughter went through her whole elementary school with a message of exclusion, and that exclusion is how she is safe. And I personally feel this deeply affects her more than any of us, or even she realizes today. So as much as we have all advocated for some approaches, administration has not always been fair to at least our needs as parents of a child that has food allergies or my daughter's. And some of their strategies may meet their needs, but not ours. So I just want to say that I have settled for things that are less. Like I settle that teachers know how to use EpiPens, but they have no idea about anaphylaxis. I settle that teachers support decreased food incentives and experiments involving food in the classrooms. And I've settled for 6 years that I've had to write a letter to the superintendent of schools to send my child out of district because my district does not have a school nurse. I'm even settling that it's November and I still don't have a 504 plan meeting to talk about food safety in my daughter's classroom. I've even settled for sometimes being quiet so my daughter could fit in. These issues and our voices arising from diversity of minorities groups of students and parents represent it is time for change and to knock down the fences and to be responsible to listen without judgment and blame and to respond to the needs. That's all I've ever asked for the past 10 years. Inclusion is not bringing people into what already exists. It's making space for something different that includes everyone. And this is what I'd like to see, and we don't have to wait for the new school to be built. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Brooke LaChance, and I live at 132 3rd Street in Auburn. I just want to say that I have always attended Auburn schools since kindergarten. The same applies to my children, both of which currently are in active Auburn schools. One's in elementary, one's in high school. My children do very well. They're both in enrichment classes. They receive community awards and recognitions, maintain high honors, and score very high test exam scores. I'm very proud to be an Auburn resident, and I'm very proud to have my children in the Auburn School Department. I'm proud to come from the Auburn School Department. I appreciate the administration, and especially all of the incredible teachers and guidance support for being there for me and my children and all of our children in the system throughout the years. My son is a 504 student. He was not called down to ask about his perception within his community or his school. So he is an excluded includer. But he's very silent, he's very Buddha, but he's very upset. He feels his friends were targeted, and he's trying to figure out what that means. I am very relieved that we've received an apology from the principals. I think we needed that. I think that's going to allow us a lot of closure. But I will say this as a parent and as a community member to everybody on the school board and everybody on the school committee, leaving or staying or going or being replaced. Your voice is my voice. It is our voice. It is not your own, not in this arena. It's not. Your seat is our seat. It is not your own, not in this arena. These meetings are our meetings. They are not yours, not in this arena. And these decisions for our kids are our decisions, not yours, not in this arena. I'm not here to talk about federal or state laws. If they were broken, that's not my specialty, but one thing is the law of nature. The law of nature of parent and child, one of which not one single person anywhere on any board has the right to break. That's a sacred line. I take it very seriously. I think most parents here in this room tonight also take it very seriously. We expect you to take it very seriously. I stand by Auburn, I stand by the teachers, and I stand by our school, regardless of some of the system issues that we may need to work out. But I expect from the panel and from the board to stand with us as parents. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to close public participation at 8:15. We have a very heavy agenda still. So the next person, please. Okay. Just give them and we'll pass them down. Thank you, honey.
Good evening. My name is Stephanie Maris. I'm the assistant principal at Fairview School. I'm also a parent of 2 elementary students. I live at 37 Fern Street. I'm here tonight on the behalf of one of my teachers at Fairview to read a letter for the school committee. To whom it concerns, I am writing this letter on behalf of teacher support. It has been brought to my attention that a support group for teachers was formed. This support group is based on teacher concerns about proficiency-based learning and more specifically grading. While some teachers feel supported by this group because they are unwilling to change, others feel attacked and/or afraid of voicing their opinion on the matter. Truthfully, I believe that proficiency-based learning and grading is a great tool to show how well students are doing in a class. Parents are really accustomed to percentages and letter grades. 90 to 100, A, awesome. 80 to 89, B, and not worried, or, oh my gosh, I can't believe that teacher gave that to you. 70 to 79, C, average. We need to panic, you're not going to Harvard. For some magic number, 63 to 69, D, and 0 to 62 is an F, failure. All joking aside, we need to take these grades, scales, and percentages into consideration. This scale suggested above leaves no room for failure. What does failure mean in a grade system like this? For many students, and for myself, it means, gotcha. Let's say 4 exams in a quarter based on one standard. Sounds ridiculous, right? But let's just think hypothetically, shall we? The first test, bombed it. You scored a 10%. Second test, you made improvements, but you only scored a 48%. You practiced even harder for the third test. You asked teachers for specific questions that you still don't understand on the topic, but you're getting better understanding. They guide you to be successful. You score an 89%. Sweet, making growth. Still can't believe your teacher gave you that score, though. You learn to be successful at some parts of the standard, and now you're going for gold. I want that 100%, you tell yourself. You continue to work hard. You set goals, final test, bam, you score 100%. You are so excited. You understand the topic. Wait a minute, the teacher tells you, gotcha. For the quarter in this one standard, you earned 61.75, which I'll give you that 62 because I feel badly that you did score 100 on that last test. So a great F, but still an F. Wait, let's throw out that scenario because that's not how school works. Let's say that those scores are 4 different tests on 4 different standards, but we are going to average them out, and that is going to be your final grade for the quarter. You still score a 61.75. You still earn an F. You never go back and revisit those standards because they are only scored in quarter 1. Do you understand the topics taught, or are we just going to move forward knowing you failed and you will always be a failure because you didn't know how to do it? Therefore, you will never know how to do it. Gotcha again. For the parent group supporting teachers, I ask, why is measuring failure insurmountable? Are we looking at grades or even grading the correct way? Let's take a walk back to that first scenario again. Let's say in the end you didn't earn an F, but you met proficiency on the standard. You started at failure, and instead of running away from it, you embraced it, worked hard, worked with your teachers instead of against them, and became successful. Grading is not a way of saying, gotcha, or look, I'm better than you. It's a way of communicating where you are in your process of learning. Are you proficient or not? To conclude, I left a district that was still working with old methods. And when I say old, I mean I still had a chalkboard. And we created more work for ourselves. Instead of having programs like Empower, we had to create binders filled with files from 2 previous years to show growth. I fear that if we continue to go down this road, you're not only going to be working backwards, but effective teachers are going to leave. Give us the time to figure out what works and what doesn't. Stop judging your student against another, and let's work to find a solution. Times are moving forward. It is time we do so as well.
Thank you, Stephanie.
Bickford, New Auburn. I'm not going to tell you much about myself again, but a lot of the public came out tonight to say something, and I think it's wrong if we shut down the public session early if they have more to say. And I'll yield all of my prepared 3 minutes to anyone else in the public.
Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Susan Simpson. I live at 302 Lake Street. I did not have anything prepared for tonight, and I didn't plan to speak. I did want to say that my daughter was one of the girls at AMS who was pulled out for that lovely little group that they had. And she came home and she told me that she was pulled out and she had to speak with some weird white bald man about sexual assault, about poverty, how she chooses her friends, who she chooses to hang out with, why she doesn't choose to hang out with certain kids. And then she was told that the way she answered questions, he corrected her and he told her what she actually meant to say. That was concerning to me, and we've already hashed that out, and whoever the parent was that Vicki read the letter for basically could be what I would have said. But one, I would like to say thank you to Mr. Rainier and Mr. Griffin. I truly appreciate and I believe wholeheartedly that it was poor judgment, but it was not intentional. No one was meant to be hurt in this whole situation. What I would like to really say more than anything else is that leadership starts at the top. It doesn't start in the middle. The principals and the teachers of these schools, they made a mistake, but I hold 100% responsibility to the school committee and to the superintendent of the school. They made the choices, they made the decisions, they gave the directions, not the middle people. The principals just fell on their swords for their staff and for their students and the people that we still have not heard a sorry from. School committee members and Katie Grondin, it was not okay that my daughter was put in a room with a white male and told how she needs to respond to questions about sexual assault. It's unacceptable.
Thank you all for very much for coming tonight and participating in public participation. At this time, I'm closing it, and we're moving on to our next agenda item, which is student information. We have 2 new students with us today from the high school. We have Emma, hi, and we have Anna, and we're so glad that we have them there. They were chosen among many other students, and we're glad that they're here with us tonight. So what do you have for us, girls?
So
Bring it real close.
Over the past, I would say, week, we sent an email out to all the principals at each elementary school, middle school, and the high schools, and we asked them to just send us a quick glimpse and highlights of what has recently happened at each school. And I'd like to thank all the principals who did end up getting back to us. And this is the presentation.
Make sure you have the mic
And
right.
share that other mic there. There, go. Put it down.
I can set it up to my phone.
Is it going to have...
I just have to put it onto my hotspot really quick. Yeah, I'm trying to do it to mine, but it's not working. Okay. It's working. Let's try this again.
You need an IT person, girls.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's working.
It was working earlier. When
we did a test run, but
Maybe trying.
it's not letting
Well,
me.
Ken?
It's going to help.
Sorry. Okay, wait, I think I got it.
We got it.
Maybe. Yeah, okay, we got it.
Okay.
So we did a quick glimpse and highlights of our schools in the Auburn School Department. Starting with Sherwood Heights Elementary. Sherwood Heights has continued with the positive behavior interventions and support system. They use this system to enforce better behavior throughout the school. In addition to these expectations, they have created a SENSE program. This acknowledges students for respectful, responsible, and safe behaviors. Pennies are used as tokens. Each classroom collects pennies, then when the jars are full, the students are rewarded with extra recess, pajama day, etc. The money collected from the students' good behavior is a donation to a community organization. Student council will be working to gather ideas and choose the donation destination. And these are some pictures from Sherwood Heights. Next, we have Fairview. In October, Fairview held the annual Harvest Fest that included many activities such as dunk tanks, where the staff members went for a dip. In September and October, over 50% of students were recognized as Tiger Pact All-Stars for acting as role models and consistently following the Tiger Pact of being safe, respectful, and responsible. Fairview participated in the first annual Welcome Day, where civil rights teams across Maine joined together to create and promote the idea where each school is a community for everyone. There was a special announcements, a funny scarecrow, stickers, and a bulletin board with over 200 photos taken at the Harvest Fest showing support for all individuals. RETC and SOS. In September, the school focused on school security awareness. They earned Auburn Police Department's Gold Star for how they conducted their lockdown drill with an evacuation drill. New curriculum resources have been purchased to support the high school mathematics and science targets. RETC and SOS strive to maintain a student-focused environment where students have both a voice and a choice. Students have been partnering with local businesses to learn skills. Some of these businesses include the Good Shepherd Food Bank, Androscoggin Savings Bank, Whiting's Farm, CMCC, and Bates College.
Nice pictures.
Park Ave is complete with two brand new classrooms. In the years past, some classes were squeezed into small group rooms, and now these classrooms provide a better learning environment. Kindergarten students were visited by the firefighters and learned what to do if there was ever a fire in their house. Students are learning to understand the role of a firefighter and how to call 911. Responsibility was Park Ave's October theme of the month. Students shared what responsibility meant to them at the Park Avenue Presents Assembly. The November theme is respect. Walton Elementary School. Walton recently hosted WMTV News
WMTW News Channel, students and families went to school at 5:30 a.m. for their live TV debut. Later in the morning, they had a school-wide assembly with weatherman Ted McKierney to learn about weather. The staff has been working on getting students excited about math. Walton created a Mathematician of the Month award, and their pictures are posted in the school. Walton is also working on and enforcing good attendance. For example, one day showed 97.23 of students attending school.
Actually, that was one of the coldest mornings we had when the weatherman was there.
East Auburn. Recently, Books A Million made a wonderful contribution to the school's library. The fire department came to visit. Pre-K through 6th grade students learned many important safety tips, explored equipment, and asked questions and toured a real-life fire truck. Students in 2nd and 6th grade took a trip to the Auburn Public Library and learned about everything that the library has to offer. In October, students put their math skills to the test by following a recipe to make applesauce. They did all the work from peeling, cutting, cooking, and mashing the apples.
The girls did a very nice job. Do you have anything else?
That's all.
That's all. Thank you very much. You did a wonderful job, and you were right on with that presentation. Thank you on it. All right, so now we're moving on. Superintendent's report.
So before I start my report, the PBIS, and I know there are a lot of people here from the school, but we believe we're going to need to move that because of tonight and how long it's going. So I hope they understand that. I would like you to probably make a motion to remove that from this evening. And I know there was questions on the cost of the national conference, so I will send that out to, I have it on one of our slides that we were going to do tonight. Right, yeah, but we will do it at another time due to time restraints. I think you have to make a motion to take that off the agenda. Is that
Can I have
correct?
a motion to?
So moved.
A second, please. All in favor?
Thank you, everyone, for coming.
All right.
That was a good presentation on that.
Yes,
So
thank
I
you very, very
apologize.
much.
So I want to begin by the questions that have come up with the community around the Steve Wessler and what happened last week. So I want to tell you that it was as eloquently as Scott and Neer spoke and Bob also spoke, is with the planning on having Steve Wessler work with that, it was absolutely on the best intentions to do good things. How it went in and how it was implemented did not go well. I recognize that. Last year we worked with Steve. I have been very familiar with Steve's work. Over the many years he worked with us, and there was no reason to suspect that it would not go well. We started this year, before Steve even started his work, we had a meeting with administration, and administration spoke to teachers. Steve spoke to teachers. We rolled out the plan. We also had a workshop with him where he could explain what he was doing, why he was doing that before we started. So it was all done with good intentions. I too apologize for the mistake made last week. I apologize for people feeling uncomfortable, for students being in meetings where they felt uncomfortable. That was not the intention whatsoever. We take these issues very seriously. We're going to continue to do that, and there were many lessons learned. So I apologize for what happened. You know, we work through these things, we talk, we try to make it better, and I just want to say I'm sorry for that. I'm sorry for the students being upset. I've been checking in with the high school to see how things are going, to make sure things are moving forward. That, you know, Scott has kept me in the loop, and Bob's been keeping me in the loop on what they're doing at the building. As part of that meeting with Steve Wessler, I spoke at that time around creating a committee for diversity, equity, and inclusion, and that will be the new board's need to discuss where they would like to go with that. And we have been meeting. I've met with the Green Dot folks, and I know Peter Elias is here. Have been reached out by the YWCA. Holly Lasagna sent me a contact information. So what I'm doing is creating a resource of people who've reached out and who I've reached out to make sure we have that information. Virginia Durrani, who is a parent and also teaches a course at Central Maine Community College as well as University of Maine Farmington, and Laura Ligori from Mind Bridge, which did a presentation to the adult ed program in Lewiston. That was how I received the name about implicit bias. We met yesterday and discussed what they are recommending, what they're thinking, and as I explained to them, we have a new school committee coming forward, so we need to work through that process and make sure that we are pausing, listening, thinking, and being thoughtful about the next steps. There is a meeting tomorrow with them again that Scott Anir will be attending, Michelle McClellan, and I also wanted to invite if Karen was available, or Brian, or Faith, or Dan. Tomorrow we're meeting at 3:30 to talk more about school committee planning around talking about that committee. Also, because Scott has really been working, we're hearing loud and clear the work is with the adults. We're hearing that. We understand that. That was the feedback from the students. That was feedback from staff. And so part of Scott attending the meeting tomorrow is to hear about trainings that are being offered, and as he said, he's meeting also with the Y, so to where's the work next. So I do want to make sure the community does hear that is the next step. The other thing I wanted to bring up is the data request. So there was a data request regarding us compared to other districts around MEAs. And so Brian and I have been working on what was he looking for. And so I have that. And, you know, Bree, you spoke very eloquently that this is one little snapshot. And so I'm giving this out as this was information that was asked for as we go into the evaluation, continuing the evaluation of the superintendent. So I want to give that to the school committee, and also if those in the public who want to see it, and that's my update right now.
Any questions to the superintendent? Okay, thank you. Thank you, Katie. Anybody have any committee reports that they would like to report on tonight? No? Okay. At this time, we are going into executive session.
Madam Chair, I respectfully make a motion that the school committee pause tonight's executive session and await findings of the ombudsman from the Attorney General's office relative to a current investigation about the September 4th executive session. There's adequate time to address this issue prior to the December 31st deadline imposed by the state. This may have some relevancy on how we appropriately and legally proceed in executive sessions.
Thank you very much, Elfrida, on it.
I'll second that.
All in favor of not going in tonight for executive session? 3. Okay, motion is denied. We are going into executive session. So we will, and the purpose is going to be, sorry, they voted.
Oh, okay, I see what you're saying. Yep, go ahead.
Okay, we're going to go into executive session for the discussion of the superintendent's evaluation on it. Can I have a motion?
So moved.
Second? Second, please.
Second.
All in favor? All right, we're going into executive session at this time on it, and when we come out, sorry, guys, when we come out, we will not be holding any public information. So we're going into executive session, and we'll be coming back without anything.
My wife is here at school.
Very dysfunctional.
to discuss 405-6E. This is legal. It is to discuss labor legal counsel on it. 405-6E. May I have a motion?
So moved.
A second, please?
Second.
All in favor? All right, we're back out to executive session.